The number one rule to life is don't be a bitch. Understand that there's rules to life, and if you don't follow them accordingly, if you break the rules are going to break you. And if you're in a state of breaking the rules, but you don't know that you're breaking the rules because you're unaware to the fact that you're breaking the rules and that life has rules, well, you're going to be ruled by, what you're breaking, because what you're breaking is the rules. And, if you break the rules will break you. And the number one rule that most people break in life is don't be a bitch. And so being a bitch is the biggest limitation you can ever set on yourself. But the problem is people can't dissect when they're being a bitch and when they're not being a bitch. So when someone who has, a higher, emanation or a higher quality that is, permeating their being and is outflowing from their, existential being, and, to be a bitch is to have the capacity to be aware of, what is pouring out of that individual, to see the high quality, stuff, the essence of the individual just outflow and pour out of the individual. And to be a bitch is to see it and then look at oneself and then compare and then analyze the individual who has this outflow of this aurora of energy that is just the accumulation of superior conduct. To be a bitch is to disregard the outflow and try to protect yourself with vanity and ego. To see something beyond your horoscope of existence and to not put that on the exaltation and to give the respect that is due, but to denounce it and to exclude yourself from being able to accomplish the same thing. And so to be a bitch is to create the biggest limitation on yourself, to create a block on the path of being the best you, and to limit yourself to the frequency that you currently exist in. And so you have to understand that what you frequently see is a reflection of you. And if you can't see something beyond the horoscope of you, if you see something that is beyond you, if you can see something and then try to denounce that because you don't see yourself having that, to see someone else having that is to be able to either be pulled up in frequency to understand that if this individual can have it, you definitely can have it, because there's nothing separating you from, that individual and who you are. The only difference is what they know, what you don't know, what they apply and what you don't apply, and, the quality of their existence, the qualitative state of their being. But you can always rise in quality as an individual. So many people, get stuck in the limitation of being a bitch. And then when they see someone who has transcended the being a bitch state of being, now they try to limit the individual who is not a bitch, because the existence, the energy that exudes from their soul and pours out into reality, because your horoscope of comprehension is too insignificant and little to belittle, people who are obviously not little, because you feel little in their presence. To be a bitch is the biggest limitation for yourself. And so the best rule and the number one rule of life is don't be a bitch. And when you see someone or you see something, don't limit what you see and project your personal limitation onto what is obviously not limited, like how you are limiting it. To see something, to have a financial goal that you want to hit, but then, to be insecure, to believe it's impossible because you're the individual who has that goal. You guys see celebrities and you guys see all these people doing big things, but when it comes to the individual in the mirror, you limit yourself to, that individual in the mirror. But it's very fucking simple. If someone else can have it, you can have it. If someone else can do it, you can do it. You're just, too limited to understand that, you can just train and you can grow and you can transform yourself into more, much more. Most of you guys exist in this low quality fucking state of being. And when we call you a low quality bitch, you have some fucking way to feel about it, but you never reflected on the low quality piece of shit reflecting back at you in the mirror. Do yourself a favor and understand that reality is reflective. So when you see your life and it's low quality and it's, stagnating in this shit, understand that you could make a change. You're just too much of a bitch to do it. And the fucking first rule of life is don't be a bitch. So every day is wake up and don't be a bitch day. And when you see a bitch, make sure that you're presence alone will make that person feel little, because that person deserves it if they're going to sit there and project limitations onto you. Pussy! So every day, wake up and exude the maximum that you could potentially, you have a certain limit, an energy expenditure per day. But if you maximize that shit every fucking day, well, guess who the fuck you're going to become in a year? The individual that you aspired to be, the individual that you had to transform into, the individual who you saw in your mind and then went into actualization to actually become and develop into that individual. To open the notebook, write down the 10-0 self, and then to move towards that individual, to inform into that individual by developing yourself and by growing into that individual, by persisting with the daily habits that we assign to you once you get on the program and join the self-development community. DM me on Instagram. But the point is, don't be a bitch. Because when you are a bitch and you see someone who's not a bitch and you project that pussy as bitch as energy onto someone who's not a bitch, well, you just limited yourself in so many fucking areas, and now you're stuck in this fucking box, this metaphysical prison that you've created for yourself, and then, engulfed your psyche into because you were too perplexed by something you couldn't fucking comprehend because it was beyond your horoscope of fucking understanding. Every day is exude the maximum day. If you believe that you can't attain something, it's most likely because you're doing something that is not, coherent to the maximum and, fulfilling the potential within you. So if you feel limited when someone who is unlimited is in front of you, there's a problem with you, not the unlimited individual. It's a problem with you. So first things first, realize you are a bitch and do everything to not be a bitch, and you transcended being a bitch. And once you transcend being a bitch, that's when you can start going at higher levels, because you're no longer limited by being a bitch. Peace.